Alien widow pleads with a human man to be her child's new father. The distress beacon had been screaming for 11 minutes before Cole Harrington pulled his survey shuttle out of its drift pattern and locked onto the signal. Not a human frequency. He knew that before the computer even finished its analysis. The pulse pattern was too irregular, too fast, like a panicked heartbeat instead of a coded transmission. He had seen enough deep field work in the Karata system to recognize a Vethrani emergency beacon when one lit up his board. He almost let it go. That was the honest truth of it. His hand hovered over the navigation controls for 3 full seconds. His contract with Meridian Extraction said nothing about humanitarian stops. The Vethrani were not enemies, but they were not exactly allies either. And their empire had been watching the slow human expansion into the outer sectors with the kind of careful silence that made diplomats nervous. But the beacon was screaming. Cole punched the intercept course and stopped thinking about contracts. The ship, he found, was a small personal transport, the kind wealthy Vethrani families used for private travel between systems. It was spinning. One of its stabilizer fins had been sheared clean off, and a long black scar ran down its starboard hull where something had hit it hard and kept moving. Debris field, probably. The outer sectors were full of unmapped rock clusters that navigation charts had not caught up with yet. Cole matched its spin, which was not easy and not comfortable, and extended his docking collar. It took 4 minutes for someone on the other side to manually engage the connection. 4 minutes in a spinning, damaged ship with who knew how much atmosphere left. Cole spent those 4 minutes with his hand on his emergency kit and his eyes on the atmospheric readings. The hatch opened. She was tall. That was the first thing his brain processed, because she had to duck slightly to clear the docking collar, even though it was built for human standard height. Vethrani ran tall, he knew that. But knowing it and having one fill your docking corridor were different experiences. Her skin was a deep blue-gray, the kind of color deep ocean water turned before a storm. Her eyes were amber, almost gold, and they were fixed on him with an expression he could not read, because he had never learned to read Vethrani faces. She was holding a child. The child was small, maybe 4 or 5 years old by Vethrani aging standards, wrapped in what looked like a thermal blanket that had been torn from somewhere and re-wrapped by hands that had been shaking. The child was not moving. Cole moved. He did not ask questions. He pulled his emergency kit open and pointed at his medical bay, which was barely large enough for 2 people, and one of the people would have to sit on the floor. She followed him without speaking. She understood the gesture, or she understood the urgency, and in that moment, it did not matter which. The child was breathing. Cole confirmed that first and felt something in his chest loosen about 3 degrees. Shallow breathing, a elevated pulse by Vethrani standards if the readings he was getting were accurate, but breathing. The woman spoke. Her translator implant was working because the words came out in English a half second after the sounds she made, which were lower and more resonant than human speech, like someone talking inside a large stone room. "My son," she said. "He was struck by a panel. During the impact." "Where?" She touched her own side, just below the ribs. Cole worked. He was not a doctor, and he had a field medic certification that Meridian Extraction required for all solo survey operators, and he had used it twice in 3 years, once on himself. But he had the kit, and he had the training, and he had the absolute inability to stand still when a child was hurt in front of him. The boy's name was Ven. Cole learned that not because she offered it, but because the boy woke up halfway through Cole's assessment and said it himself. apparently introducing himself to the strange-smelling human who was pressing cold instruments against his ribs. "I am Ven," the boy said, entirely serious for someone who had just been unconscious. "Cole," Cole said. "Lie still." The mother's name was Sarah. He learned that later, after he had determined that Ven had 2 cracked ribs and a bruised lung, but nothing that would kill him. After he had given the boy a sedative patch from the kit and watched those gold-amber eyes close again, and after Sarah had sat down on the floor of his medical bay and put her face in her hands. She did not cry. Or maybe she did, and he could not tell. He sat on the floor across from her, because standing over someone who was falling apart felt wrong regardless of species. "Your ship cannot be flown," Cole said, because she needed information even if she did not need it that second. She lifted her face. "I know. I can take you to the Meridian Station at Karata 4. They have a medical facility. Ven needs imaging, real imaging, not what I have in this kit." She looked at him for a long moment with those amber eyes, and he still could not read her face. But something in the quality of her stillness changed. "You stopped," she said. "Yes. You did not have to stop." Cole thought about the 3 seconds his hand had hovered over the navigation controls. He thought about the honest truth of it. "No," he said. "I did not have to stop." She held his gaze for another moment, and then she looked down at her son, at the small rise and fall of his chest, at the thermal blanket still wrapped around him. "Thank you, Cole Harrington," she said. He had not told her his last name. It was on his suit patch. She had read it in the middle of everything else, which told him something about her that he filed away, without knowing yet what he would do with it. "Get some rest," he said. "Anna, we have about 6 hours to Karata 4. He went back to the cockpit and set the course, and did not think too hard about the way the words "thank you" had sounded when they came out of a voice like a room made of stone. He thought about it a little, though. The beacon had been screaming for 11 minutes. He was glad he had stopped. The medical center on Karata 4 was run by a woman named Dr. Nanpriya Okafor, who had been practicing in the outer sectors for 12 years and had stopped being surprised by anything that came through her doors around year 3. She took one look at Ven, one look at Sarah, and one look at Cole, and made a decision about priorities that did not require any of them to explain much. Ven was taken for imaging. Sarah went with him. Cole sat in a waiting area that smelled like recycled air and industrial cleaning solution, and stared at a wall screen running outer sector shipping news. He did not know why he was still there. That was not entirely true. He knew why. He was a man who stopped for screaming beacons, and stopping for beacons did not end at the docking collar. It ended when he knew the thing he had stopped for was going to be all right. He waited. Priya found him an hour later with the look of someone delivering news that was good but came with complications. "The boy will be fine," she said, sitting across from him. "The ribs will heal clean. The lung bruising will resolve in a few weeks with rest." "Good," Cole said. "His mother," Priya said, and paused in a way that was not a medical pause. "She told me what happened, not just the debris field." Cole waited. Her husband died 8 months ago. The ship they were on was the last thing she owned outright. She was taking her son to her husband's family on the other side of the Karata system. Priya folded her hands. The family did not want them. Vethrani inheritance customs are complicated, and her husband's family declared that Ven, because he was born on a human-administered station, does not qualify for clan recognition. Cole looked at the wall screen. A freighter company was announcing new routes through the Delari corridor. That is not my business, he said. No, Priya agreed. But she asked me if I thought you would hear her out. Hear her out about what? Priya looked at him with a particular expression of someone who was not going to answer that question because the answer was obvious and also enormous. She is in room 7, Priya said. Ven is sleeping. She has about an hour before he wakes up, and she loses the ability to have a quiet conversation. Cole sat for another 30 seconds. He stood up. Room 7 was small and clean, and Ven was asleep on the bed with a monitoring patch on his chest, breathing slowly and steadily. Sarah was sitting in the chair beside him, and she stood when Cole came in, and the room felt considerably smaller with both of them in it. You wanted to talk, Cole said. Yes. She did not make him wait. He appreciated that more than he could have explained. I am going to say something that will sound strange. I need you to hear all of it before you respond. All right. She looked at her son. Then she looked at Cole. I need Ven to have a father, she said. Not because I cannot raise him alone. I can. I am doing it. But under Vethrani law, a child without a recognized paternal guardian has no standing in any formal proceeding. No right to education contracts. No right to medical priority access. No right to inheritance claims. She paused. On a human-administered station, those things do not matter. But we cannot stay on human stations forever. And when Ven is old enough to travel, old enough to trade, old enough to need the things that require standing in the outer sectors, he will have nothing to stand on. Cole looked at the sleeping boy, at the monitoring patch, at the small hand curled on top of the blanket. You are asking me, he said. I am asking you, she said. Not for myself. I want to be clear about that. I am not asking for anything for myself. I am asking for him. A formal guardian registration. It would not require you to be present. It would not require you to change your life. It would give him a name to put on forms, a human registration number that carries weight in outer sector law, a legal anchor. The room was very quiet. You stopped for a beacon, she said. I do not know many people who stop. Cole looked at her. He still could not read her face with any confidence. But he could read the quality of her stillness, and it was the stillness of someone who had thought about this for a long time and had decided to ask anyway, because the alternative was not asking, and the alternative was not acceptable. I need to think, he said. I know, she said. I am not saying no. Something shifted in her face. Not relief, not yet. Something smaller than relief, but in the same direction. I know, she said again. Ven made a small sound in his sleep, some dream noise that resolved into quiet. Both of them looked at him at the same time. Cole left the room and went back to the waiting area and sat down again and stared at the wall screen. A formal guardian registration, a name on a form, an anchor. He thought about what it meant that a child could be adrift not in space, but in paperwork, in law, in the vast, cold bureaucracy of the outer sectors, and how adrift was adrift regardless of what was doing the drifting. He thought for a long time. Cole found Dr. Priya Okafor in her office, which was small and buried under physical folders that she apparently trusted more than digital systems. And he asked her to explain outer sector guardian registration law to him in plain language. She did. It took 40 minutes. She was thorough. When she was done, Cole sat with the information for a moment and then asked one more question. If I register as Ven's guardian and then something happens to me, what happens to him? Priya looked at him over the folders. in that event, the registration would revert to the next named adult, which would be his mother as primary caregiver. The registration is a legal anchor, not a transfer of custody. Sarah retains full parental authority regardless. She explained that part, Cole said. But you wanted to hear it from someone who had no stake in your answer. Yes. Priya nodded. She was a woman who respected that kind of thinking. No, Cole went back to room 7. Ven was awake. This was a different experience than Ven being unconscious or Ven being asleep. Ven awake was a focused, serious, small person who tracked Cole's entrance into the room with the kind of attention that suggested he had been briefed or had simply been listening through the door. "You are Cole?" Ven said. "Yes." "You fixed my ribs." "The kit fixed your ribs. I just used the kit." Ven considered this with apparent satisfaction, as if precision in attribution was something he valued. Sarah was standing near the window. She had not spoken yet. She was watching her son. "My mother said you are thinking," Ven said. "I am." "I think also," Ven said. "Sometimes thinking takes a long time. That is acceptable." Cole looked at this boy, this small, serious person with amber eyes and a monitoring patch and the particular dignity of someone who had been through something hard and was not going to make a production of it. "No, it does not have to be a long time," Cole said. Sarah turned from the window. "I will register as your guardian," Cole said. "We should talk about what that means practically. I travel a lot. I am not in any one place for long. But I have a registered address at the Meridian Hub on Karata 4, and that address is permanent." "That is enough," Sarah said. Her voice was very steady. "That is more than enough." "I have conditions," Cole said. "Not difficult ones. I want to know how he is doing. Not reports, not forms. Actual information. If he is sick, if something goes wrong, if he gets into trouble. I do not want to be a name on a paper. If my name means something, I want it to actually mean something." Sarah held his gaze. "Yes," she said. "And I want him to know he can contact me. Not to ask permission for things, just to know he can." She looked at her son, like something moved across her face that Cole still could not fully name, but that he recognized as the feeling of a door opening in a place that had been sealed for a long time. "Ven," she said. The boy looked at his mother. "This man is going to be your registered guardian," she said. "That means his name will be on your documents. It means you have a formal human anchor in outer sector law." Ven looked at Cole with those serious amber eyes. "Does that mean you are my father?" he asked, and the room was very quiet. Cole crouched down so he was at the boy's eye level. "It means I am responsible for you in the way that law recognizes. What it means beyond that is something we figure out as we go. I think that is honest." Ven thought about this. "Honest is good," Ven said. "My father always said honest was better than comfortable." "Your father was right." "Yes," Ven said. "He usually was." Cole stood up. He looked at Sarah. She was looking at him with those amber eyes that he was beginning, slowly, to learn to read. "I will find the registration office," he said. "We should do this before I talk myself into overcomplicating it." The corner of her mouth moved. It was the first time he had seen her face do that. "Overcomplicating," she said, "is a very human thing." "Guilty," Cole said. He went to find the registration office. The paperwork took 3 days. This was not because the process was complicated, though it was, but because outer sector registration offices operated on what experienced travelers called geological time. Forms were submitted. Forms were reviewed. Forms were sent to a regional office on a station 2 systems over. The regional office confirmed receipt. The regional office requested a secondary verification. The secondary verification required Cole to appear in person at a terminal, which he did, and then required Sarah to appear in person, which she did, and then required Ven to be present, which he also was, sitting very straight in a chair that was too large for him and watching the whole proceeding with complete attention. During those 3 days, Cole learned things. He learned that Sarah had been a navigation systems engineer before her husband's death, that she had spent 7 years designing routing algorithms for Vethrani commercial fleets, that she had given all of that up. Not because she had to, but because her husband had been sick for 2 years before he died, and someone had needed to be home. And she had chosen to be that person without apparent regret, and with the kind of matter-of-fact clarity that Cole found remarkable. He learned that Ven had an opinion about everything and kept most of those opinions to himself until he had thought them through completely, and at which point he delivered them as finished conclusions rather than working theories. He learned that Sarah drank something in the mornings that smelled like pine resin and tasted, according to Ven, who had once stolen a sip, like the color gray. He told them about survey work, about the debris fields and the unmapped rock clusters and the particular loneliness of deep field operations that was not really loneliness so much as a specific quality of silence that he had come to find necessary. And Ven asked if he had ever found anything interesting in a debris field. Cole said yes. Once, he had found a ship that had been listed as lost for 30 years, with its navigation log still intact. Ven wanted to know what was in the navigation log. Cole said mostly routine entries, but the last one had been the captain writing a letter to his daughter. Ven was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Did she get it?" "I do not know," Cole said. "I submitted it to the registry. On what happened after that was not my part." Ven nodded slowly, in the way of someone filing information into a category that mattered to him. On the 3rd day, the registration was confirmed. Cole received a notification on his communicator. Guardian registration. Cole Harrington, registered to Ven, of the Karata outer sectors. Legal anchor confirmed. He showed it to Sarah. She read it. She read it again. Then she handed it back to him and looked out the window of the station corridor and at the dark and the stars and the distant glow of Karata's sun. And he watched something in her shoulders change, some weight that had been there since the moment he had opened his docking collar, shift. Not disappear. Shift. "Thank you," she said. The same words as before. The same voice like a room made of stone, but different. Before, the words had been urgent. Now they were something else. Settled. Real. "Where will you go?" Cole asked. "There's a station in the mid-sectors. The Delari corridor. I have a contact there who said there is work for a navigation engineer. It is not what I was doing before. It is a start." "Ven will be in school?" "There is a school on the station, yes." Cole looked out at the stars alongside her. The survey contract was still waiting. The outer sectors were full of unmapped rock and lost logs and screaming beacons. "The Delari corridor is on my route next quarter," he said. She did not say anything for a moment. "Is it?" she said, and then it was not a question. "I do not make promises I cannot keep," Cole said. "But if I am in range, I will check in." Ven appeared from around a corridor junction with the energy of someone who had found something important and needed to report it immediately. There is a food stall on level 3 that sells fried dough that smells like the festival food from my father's home system. Ven said, I think we should investigate. Cole looked at Sarah. Sarah looked at Cole. That does sound like something that requires investigation, Cole said. They went to level 3. The fried dough was excellent. Ven ate 2 portions and reported his findings with great seriousness. Sarah ate 1 portion and said nothing about it, but got a second one without being asked. Cole ate 3 portions and decided that some things in the outer sectors were not strange at all. Some things were just good. He filed that conclusion away next to the navigation log, next to the letter the captain had written to his daughter, next to the screaming beacon and the 3 seconds his hand had hovered over the navigation controls, next to the particular sound of the words, "Thank you," coming from a voice, like a room made of stone. He would check in next quarter. He was the kind of man who stopped for beacons. He was also, it turned out, the kind of man who came back.